everyone, I'm Rebecca and welcome back to my sewing room. This week I am continuing on with my rose boarding suit project that I'm wearing right here and hopefully finishing it, because by the time we get to the end of this week and this video, I will have only 2 days left before flying off to costume college. So we are picking up right where we left off in the last video, which is that the jacket here just needs buttons and buttonholes. I'm going to be making covered buttons for this, and I can't do the buttonholes until I make the buttons because you need the size of the button to be able to make the buttonholes. The other thing technically that I guess is part of this jacket is to make the little fake cuff that goes inside the sleeves. Instead of doing a full shirt, I am going to be doing a dickie and then having a fake cuff inside here. So that's literally going to be a little band of white cotton with my little like nubby ball trim at the end of it, which I still don't love the trim that I have. I showed you guys that last week, but it is the only thing that Joann's had, and so unless I can find something better by the time I go to do the cuffs and the collar, that's what we're stuck with. And those are going to be some of the last things I do, specifically the cuffs. If I need to, I can do this in the hotel room the night before, like when I get there. The collar, the whole dickie, I do want to have done beforehand though, so that I'm almost certainly be doing in this video. But where we left off was with the skirt and doing the skirt mock-ups. So if you saw the last video, you will know that I did the first skirt mock-up, but it was just too big around overall. Skirts of this era are really quite narrow. If you've heard of like the hobble skirt, that's really this era. This isn't going to be quite so hobbly because I'm just not into that, and also I really don't think even the one that she wears in the movie was that tight, because we see her get out of the car and she's able to move her legs a little bit. So I need to take out 4 inches total of the width, both in the hips and also in the full like circumference around at the bottom. So I'm just recutting the front side pieces so that I can remove that from where it would meet up with the side back panel. So I'm gonna go ahead and do that now and sew all of my darts in place, because I had already pinned darts on one side. I'm gonna match those on the other side, and then I will try the skirt back on and we'll see if that mock-up works. I do, by the way, already know that I didn't make it long enough somehow. I think I wound up raising it up a little bit from where I had first measured. Skirts of this era are generally higher, like they sit up around here. However, since I was never planning to wear this by itself, I was going to do it more at the natural waist. But frankly, I just feel like skirts want to sit up here in this era. So I did raise it up about 1 inch, and therefore I need to increase the length about 1 inch. By the way, this mock-up that I'm making has no seam or hem allowance except for where it is actually in the seams. Though I also forgot to put the seam allowance in the side seams of the like center back panel. So there's that too. So we're gonna have to see how that lines up with the jacket, because it should line up with the center back panel of the jacket. Likewise, the kind of wrap around front of the skirt should be lining up with this side bit of the jacket here. And then I believe the kind of straight edge that looks very weird in my opinion, I believe that is just center front, but it's so hard to tell because we just never get good full-length pictures or like images of this even through the movie of where things line up. So honestly, I could probably make up a lot of things of this skirt and no one would be the wiser, except, you know, I'm doing this on camera. Anyway, I'm gonna go get to it and I will show you what that second mock-up looks like in just a moment. So this is the box of the button kits that I ordered. Oddly enough, it doesn't actually come with the template for what you're supposed to cut out. This was just from the Dritz one that I had from before, but it's the same size. This, however, does come with 100, and it comes with 2 of the little doohickeys to actually like make the buttons, which is interesting. I'll link this kit down below because it's way, way more cost effective. Basically, all of this is about less than twice this, and this comes with like what, 8 or 10 or 12 or something like that. Not enough for this coat and skirt. So yeah, this is a really, really good deal, and they all went together really nicely. You can see all of my buttons here. So there's a bunch of the velvet ones, and then there's like 4, I think, of the striped ones. Yeah, I know it's not quite centered, but I did the best I could. With these ones, I did actually wind up using 2 layers of fabric. So inside there's a layer of cotton sateen as well, because otherwise it was was coming out too shiny. The very first one that I did, I only did one layer. This is going to be my spare button, and do you see that reflection that is coming out? That's actually the silver that you're seeing underneath reflecting the light, whereas that does not happen when it's 2 layers. So if you are using a thinner or lighter or white fabric, you may find that you need to put 2 layers onto buttons. I've had that happen before. So yeah, just something to keep in mind, but this way I at least have a spare. I always make spares of covered buttons. So this way I have one of each of these, and that way I can like keep them with the garment and replace them if they break. I have found that the ones that are not Dritz actually don't break as easily. Like the Dritz ones are just not as good. I think those shanks fall off. So hopefully these will all be okay. And now it is time to do buttonholes. So I've marked my buttonholes here. These are the 4 that I'm definitely doing by machine. I'm going to maybe try to do this one by machine as well. It's not as thick as I thought it would be, so we'll see how these other 4 do, and then maybe we'll try this one as well. And then right here, I just have buttons, well, there's going to be one there as well, that are just marked. Those are the fake buttons that get sewn on top, because this is like the double-breasted whole thing. And then I also have to figure out if I want to do like reverse buttons so that I have one on the underside over here going to the lower layer. So I showed you some of the ties that I had ordered last week for this project, and the 2 that I showed you last week I'm returning, which I told you. But then 3 more just arrived, so things are again showing up a lot bluer on camera, I feel like, than they actually are. All of 3 of these are the same color, and it's basically the same color as this, but like different sheens. These 2, honestly, I think they're identical, and they're both kind of like ribbed like that with that diagonal rib. Not a huge fan of that. This one, on the other hand, is beautiful and perfect, and I will figure out which exact tie that this was, and I will link this in the description because I think this looks fantastic. I think the width is really good, and yeah, it's a winner. So I'm really glad. This was just like the first one that I really liked, except that it's wider. So yay, perfect. And now I have my tie. I just found a possibly brilliant application for fabric markers that I really need to show you, because I'm sure we've all run into this, at least I certainly have, when you are doing a buttonhole on a darker fabric and then you go to cut your buttonhole open, and what you wind up seeing is a lot of the white from like the interfacing and everything through, and it just kind of peeks out. Well, why not take a fabric marker like this purple one right here and marker the edges. You can see I've done it on half the buttonhole so far. Marker the edges so that what you wind up with is little bits of that fray and interfacing and everything that actually matches your surface color. Brilliant! Why have I never thought of this before? I'm definitely using this on everything from now on. So I'm not sure really how far down you can see here, but I have mock-up try-on number 2 on, and I took all of those extra inches out of both of the sides. So I think it was 2 inches total off of each side from like this area going into the center back. And then also what you actually you can't see because it's on the inside right now, but as I was going around and matching up my darts from side to side so they would be even, I realized that one of the sides, and I'm not sure which one it is right now, is this side over here. This side somehow was like way larger, so it actually has like an extra 2 inches that were taken out of it also from this side back seam here. But as you can see, it is still too large, pretty significantly. Now that said, I believe that the around the hem type width is actually where I want it to be. So that means that all of the rest of the excess just has to be taken out as darts or shaping into the waist. So I'm gonna figure out exactly where that has to come out of and get that all pinned and or sewn into place, and then hopefully that will finally work. So I have the waist kind of haphazardly pinned in places, and I'm adding additional darts on the kind of side back here. And then also I've changed the shape of the opening down at the front. Hopefully I can get far enough away so I can get that in frame, but I've opened it up, the curve, a little bit more and taken the curve around to the side over here, because when we look at like this image right here, you can actually see that the curve portion is probably about an inch shorter than the straight portion here, and that doesn't match up until really you get to kind of the side back in this area. and then that under layer with the horizontal stripes starts over there and then wraps around and joins and overlaps the straight area here. So it's a very, very funky skirt. I still don't know how big to make that under layer. Like, how do I measure this? I think I'm gonna have to put it on the dress form once I get all my darts in place. So I am going to sew all of these darts now, make sure that that fitting works, and then try it on again. All the darts are now in place. Everything is fitting really nicely up top. And again, the bottom was already fitting well. I still have to figure out the little inset piece, but I can do that once I'm already in the stripes. So I have one other thing to try on with this, which is I need to draw in something where I can see these seam lines and see if the coat matches up with these seam lines. So I drew all these lines, like horizontal, vertical, etc., to try to figure out if I could just see it while it was on. I could not see it. However, I then decided to put some pins in where the jacket was hitting here, and then I drew in these little stars, and look at what is somehow a near perfect match to the jacket. So that is freaking fantastic, and I can go ahead and add my seam allowances and cut this out in the stripes. So I don't know why this didn't occur to me, but the center back piece has to be placed crossways with the grain to get those horizontal stripes, and the fabric's not long enough. So I guess I'm going to have to piece this together. Luckily, the jacket is going to hide the piecing, so I'll just do it up at the top. So I'm doing a bit more playing around with this hat, for one thing because it's larger than my suitcase, and for two because my friend might be able to take it with her in her car driving down to costume college instead. And one of the things that I was looking at was if it would be at all easy to remove this band and actually expand the crown, because her crown is a lot larger than this crown. The other thing I was looking at was to actually curl this in and press it down so that I get that kind of look of the double layer around the outside, which would be really nice and would make this a little smaller. So I've pulled out the wires over here. These are the ends of the wires, and in pulling it and tightening it, it's curving this in. But the problem is I should have done all of this before I painted it, because I just tested a little spot where I pressed it down, and sure enough, the paint got on my iron. So I'm not sure exactly how possible this is. And it's also just dawned on me that maybe I should be pulling this to the bottom side instead of the top. I'm not sure. I think I'm going to focus on the crown for now and trying to expand that, because honestly, if the crown is larger, then maybe this won't look so comically large, but I did need to pull at least a little wire out anyway, so I think that'll be good. So my hat is now kind of just sitting, waiting for things to happen. I wasn't able to get the crown that much wider, but it is a little bit wider, and I'm just trying to get it flat on top again, so I steamed it up and put these other pots, heavy items, underneath with actually the same pot that I was using initially on the bottom, but I did stretch it out a little bit using this pot as well, which is the next one up. And then around here, I have cut off the excess wire. You can see that sitting right here, and folded everything in, pressed it all in place, and used my little clippies to kind of hold that in place for me. And then I'm going to stitch around that inner side, because you can actually see like a satin stitch looking thing going like this on the piece that they had pieced in. And so I'm probably not going to do satin stitch because that's really going to kill my needles and stuff, but I'll probably just do a straight stitch to add that in. But I'm liking the look of it so far. However, what I don't like the look of is my iron looks atrocious. I don't know if you can see, but all of those little like matte marks, yeah, that's purple paint. So I'm going to hope that my iron cleaner can fix that. I've had this for a while. I think I originally got it from Quality Sewing, so I don't know where it can be purchased elsewhere, but if I can find it, I will put a link in the description. And this has always done me well before with like fusible sticky stuff on there. So hopefully it will work for this disaster of a purple iron. Oh yeah, now you can see the purple. Yikes. Oh my gosh, so you're supposed to use this on the edge of your board like I did at first with those lines, but it didn't seem like it was doing a lot, so I just kind of laid it flat. Oh my gosh, there's so much purple, but luckily it does seem to be coming off, so I think I'll have to do a lot more of this, probably use a couple of these sheets, but I really did a number of this. And of course, the outfit is white, and I still need to iron more of the outfit. My iron is beautiful again, yay! And I tested it on a little piece of the white, and we're coming off clean, so that's good. I used this entire sheet, and then I still used a couple of lines on this second sheet as well. I've never had to use more than one sheet. Honestly, normally, like you can see right here, whatever I did last time, it was like one little stripe. Normally these last for lots. So yeah, if I can find a link to this, I will link it for you guys, because this stuff is really, really great. And if you've never cleaned your iron before, please clean your iron. I decided that I really wanted more wire in here, especially now that I moved the existing wire basically to a more inner ring, since it's here instead of the edge. So I'm actually putting more millinery wire along the edge. All I'm doing is literally doing a straight stitch right on top of this row of stitching. I don't yet know what it looks like on the bottom, of course, but I think it's a good color match at least. And that is keeping that wire in among the edge. And then I'm going to do another row of stitching on the edge here to get everything nice and flush. So that should be everything that I need to do on the actual structure of the hat. The skirt is together at least, and all of my edges are kind of pressed and pinned in place so that it is looking kind of like how it will look when it's finished. I have to figure out how this overlap is sewn / put together, because right now it is literally just an open skirt, which, you know, frankly does not work at all. Obviously we'll have buttons on it at some point on there, and although my darts are not looking good at all, like, I don't know what's going on. They looked so good on the mock-up and they are just not working on the actual. However, the jacket goes down to like here. So frankly, all of those ugly darts are going to be hidden, and they are fitting at the waist, which means that I can go ahead and I can bind off the waist. I'm probably going to do it with like a grosgrain ribbon or a Petersham ribbon, something that doesn't stretch like a bias tape but is nice and thin. And then I have to sew all of my hems edges down by hand, of course, and figure out how to get this to stay shut, also probably by hand. It's going to have some hooks up here at the waist, but then it will have the buttons somewhere in there as well, plus the decorative buttons that go on the back. And then I still have to figure out the inset part once all of that is sewn together, but that's probably going to be the last bit on this skirt, because honestly I think that this needs to be kind of sewn shut and anchored shut before I can even figure out the inset down there. So this took a lot of figuring down here as far as the curve. I realized that I didn't have enough of a gap in between for that little stripy panel to exist. So I had to pull up the curve a lot more. Honestly, I think that there's at least a good inch now that's turned under that wasn't before. And then I had to figure out my button spacing, which by pulling up this picture right here, which is one of the only full-length pictures, I looked at the scale of the upper buttons versus the lower buttons, and the lower buttons appear to be only 2 3/8 inches apart compared to the 3 inches of the upper buttons. So I have those pinned in place. The bottommost one is like where the two sides of the skirt split, and then they go up 2 3/8 inches from there, so that the top one is just about where the curve of the skirt is starting. And I'm kind of thinking I can just use those buttons to connect the two sides of the skirt down there, and probably don't have to otherwise sew together the skirt. I will sew together kind of the middle point of the skirt until about probably here, and then from here up it will be open and then closed with hooks and eyes at the waist. So yeah, there's a little bit that has to be hand sewn together, but I think overall hopefully not too bad. So once I laid it out nice and flat so that I could pin this whole opening closed, like the part that's going to be attached to itself, I realized that where it was coming together was about 1.5 inches over this way than where it was when it wasn't pinned. And so I went and I lined up my stripes so that the stripes down there are even from one top part to the bottom part, and it kind of shifted things over. So I actually shifted my buttons down just a little bit as well, and I spaced them out 2.5 inches as opposed to 2 3/8 inches, and I think that is now perfect. So now I have 1.5 tons of hand sewing to do, sewing on the buttons, doing all of the hems, sewing this portion right here together, and putting, well, the waistband won't necessarily be hand sewing, but I will have to do the waistband as well. So yeah, once I get all of that finally done, I can finally do the inset. Oh, by the way, this is what the hat looks like now. I think it is a much better size than it was before, and I really like the way that this finished edge looks with the double layer section. So yeah, now it is time to not only do all of that hand sewing, I've got to pick some threads off of here still, but not only do all of that hand sewing, but I also have to paint or marker or whatever the stripes onto the ribbon for this hat. And I have to figure out how I'm getting this hat to Southern California. Of course, here I am just minding my business, marking the buttons on the back of the skirt, and I catch my finger on this pin and it starts to bleed, and then before I know it, I have blood on my freaking skirt. Ugh. And naturally it's not where the button goes, because the button goes there. So it's above where the button goes. So it's really obvious, and it's on the white because this whole thing is white. So it's really frustrating because now I have to figure out how to get that out because the whole spit trick isn't working. That's supposed to be like you take your own spit and put it on blood and it comes out. Yeah, not happening. Well, I used a lot more spit and I rubbed it a lot more and it seems to be mostly gone. So hopefully it won't just look like a kind of lightened or yellowed spot, because that's kind of what it's feeling like right now, but it's a lot less obvious than that big spot of blood that was there. So lovely. Oh my gosh, you guys, I am gonna need so much ribbon. So this is just kind of a stand-in ribbon. It's the widest ribbon I own so that I can kind of just put it in place and see how long I need, but this isn't actually wide enough. This is like 4.5 inches wide. I'm doing mine 6 inches wide because that's what makes sense for the height of my crown. Her crown was originally taller and I think her ribbon may have been even wider than 6 inches, but I tested 6 inches is what I want. But this is how many times it goes around. So on one side, there's 3 bow loops. On the other side, there's 2. I'm gonna have to double check that I have this positioning correct and it's not flip-flopped. And then it goes around the crown what appears to be twice. One time is kind of standing up, and then one time is kind of crumbled up along the bottom of the crown, like this picture that you can see right here. So I've just kind of laid this out, and now I'm going to go and measure out how long this is. I'm gonna be making mine out of this silk file fabric, but I'm going to cut it to this wide, and then I have to figure out how I'm finishing the edges. I feel like it's going to need to be wired somehow, but I'm not sure how to do that. And yeah, it's going to be this long, and I'm going to have to paint all of that and let it dry somehow. I don't know how that's going to happen, so we'll see. So I'm doing a test right now with paints as opposed to with the fabric pens that I showed you in the last video, or actually it's a combination, because the black is still the fabric marker, but the other colors are now paints. So these are the paints that I'm using. The lighter purple is Lavender Sachet Apple Barrel paint. These are all from Joann's. The darker purple is Purple Pizzazz Deco Art, and then the silver is a metallic. It's Ceram Coat Metallic Silver by Delta, it says. And then I've mixed them all with a fabric painting medium from Deco Art, and these are the colors. I have not blended them whatsoever other than with the fabric medium, although I am slightly tempted to blend them specifically for this lavender. So basically, since I have my phone right here, I'll just show you here. So basically I'm looking at this, and I'm sure it's a different color for you on screen, as this sort of lavender right in the middle there, surrounded by the silver, and then the deeper purple down here at the bottom, and then we've got like the white and the black, obviously. And so we've got our white base, we've got the black of the marker, and I think I'm going to use the markers because I've got a big pack of just black markers too. I think I'm going to use those for all of the black lines because those will be really easy to draw on with a ruler. And then the silver, these are not to scale or anything, it's just a test. The silver, I just did a big wide swath of silver, and while it was still a little wet, just because I'm impatient, I tried to do a little stripe of the light purple through the middle, and then that would wind up being surrounded by more of the black stripes, but I don't want to ruin my pen by trying to put that on wet paint. And then over here, this is that deeper purple, and I feel like that's looking really nice. I feel like these are looking decent, though I kind of wish that the purple, the light purple, had metallic, but I think that this is going to work and not dry out pens super fast other than the black, which I have a lot of. Just to compare, this was the section that I had done testing with the 2 different types of pens. You can see that this is just a much better color of purple. Like, I really picked a good shade with this Purple Pizzazz, and so yeah, that is a lot more like the color of the actual bow. And then also we're not getting that like stripy fragmented stuff. And I'm sure that having just a test piece like this, I feel like 180 inches, which is what I factored out I need for my ribbon, that would not at all last for 180 inches. So I've also tested out this top edge doing a rolled hem on my Imagine Serger, Baby Lock Imagine Serger. And it really, like, it wasn't looking good just on the white. That was that. And then I tried to draw a little bit of the black, but I didn't do it wide enough. And so the part that I had drawn on with the markers got rolled to the back, which looks really good. So then I tried to draw on afterwards, and my pen wound up going askew and getting marker there. So I would need to draw in the black line of the edge first, make it wide enough that it can get rolled to the back. But this is going to give me a little bit more support on the top of the ribbon. And also, if we look at this close up right here, it looks like there is some sort of a stiffer rolled hem at the top. I have also thought about grabbing some wire from like wired ribbon and trying to put that within the rolled hem, but I'm just not sure how I would manage to do that on my serger without like hurting my serger. But these are the only wired ribbons that I have, and so I was thinking I could pull it out of there. I think we'll see first how this does. It's just the big stand-up bow parts that need it, and I think this rolled hem is only at the top edge. I don't know if I should do it on the bottom as well. I wasn't going to use this selvage edge on the bottom, though of course that would save me from having to finish off the bottom, but I do feel like you can still kind of see the difference of like where I've painted the selvage versus where I've painted the actual. It's pretty close. I'll bet I could get away with it, especially because it's right down at the bottom of the hat. So we'll see. Maybe I'll just leave the selvage on because that would make that part at least a lot easier. So I was trying to do a little test section just on this scrap to see like how things should go. And I think I'm super way overthinking things. But first off, by having my ribbon only be 6 inches wide, which I think is narrower than the original ribbon, it's meaning that all of my stripes are closer together. So these are 3/8 inches apart. I've drawn in the black lines at every 3/8 inch, but really these two should be slightly wider than all of the rest of them. And then I think all the rest are 3/8 inches wide. And then somehow within that, like in here, I'm supposed to have additional black lines to separate out the light purple, which right now I've just drawn in a little bit of light purple. And these should have, without separate lines, should have like white running through the middle. So that's why I was testing like with fully painted versus with kind of just leaving the middle white. I feel like it doesn't really look very good, to be honest. But yeah, and then these ones here maybe are silver and stripy and maybe are not, because if we look at this picture right here, this is the best picture we have of it, and that's all we can tell. And I think I'm probably just super overthinking this, and this is going to take 20 years and I don't have 20 years. So yeah, I think I just need to cut out like the 6 inch or maybe 6.5 inch strip of the silk file and like put them all together, because I'm going to have to do these in pieces because I've got basically various scraps plus like a little bit of yardage down there, and just start painting so that it can dry and I can put it on my hat. Well, crap. I'm already having issues with my ruler transferring various like blotches to the fabric underneath, and naturally all of this is in one line. And I counted up and it's meant to be one of the light colored lines that doesn't get paint on it. So that's lovely. Yeah, not sure how to mask that, and I'm not sure how to prevent it from happening again. I mean, I literally just wiped down the ruler and put it back down, and that's when this one happened. At first it was just that one. These are where it like comes together and it looks really blotchy and messy, where the lines are coming together, basically like picking up, doing ruler, moving ruler over, and it's coming together there, and that looks really messy too. So this whole thing might be crap. Who knows? I feel like I may have made a real mistake doing it this way, because I've been working on this for a while now, and this is all it is. And so I decided to paint like this first section just to make sure that, you know, I'm not entirely insane, and I feel like I am entirely insane. I also still haven't figured out what's the best way to do the layering of the purple and the silver. I did find out that these pens that I got from Amazon, so the brush tip, this one right here, this is what I used for the bolder lines, and also I'm making this like wide line up at the top that's going to turn into the roll hem. But then I found out that this one, which looks like a nubby tip, it actually is a nice fine tip, like really fine. So I can actually make those other stripes, but I cannot imagine making 180 inches of this when this is about 18 inches and I need 10 times this, and I'm still not even done. I'm only done with like half of this because I haven't even done all of the silver ones yet. This is gonna be for freaking ever, and I probably should not have done this. I've now painted most of a 60-inch stretch because my table is 60 inches and it goes just off the edge. I still need to put the little purple stripes the rest of the way across those top 3 stripes there, and I still need to do the fine lines on most of those gray stripes. You can see I've done a couple here, and I was kind of playing with how to layer the purple versus the silver. At first I thought it was better to put the purple on first and then do the silver over, but frankly it just kind of disappears. So I've been doing the purple on top. But yeah, it's so much and I don't love it. And if I need 180 inches of this, and this is only 1/3 and this took me hours, that's not very promising. It's the next day, the paint has dried, and I've been able to go in and add all of my narrow lines to these ones here. I do think they look much better with the narrow lines. I think that even though it's not an exact match to the original, it is definitely giving off that look. And I'm hoping that all of the like ugly places like this wind up being in the back of the bow. This one is, because I went through and like re-mucked up the bow again with that other ribbon and looked at where all of the joins were. And I think that I actually need a little bit less ribbon, which is good, like maybe 10 inches less or something like that. And I went and I marked little dots of where the crossover joins are, and I just like kind of folded together this first section here, and luckily, yeah, that's in the back, so I'm glad. And interestingly enough, almost all of the seams are also either in the back or in like the connection point where it's going to get scrunched down anyway. So that is good. I like that idea. I do still have a lot more to do. I mean, obviously you can see I don't even have the pink in those lines still. And then I did add just the little bit of extra piece that I need down to the bottom, and I drew my lines on that one. So now I need to go ahead and I need to paint all of the whole rest of this ribbon, and then it can be rolled hemmed off at the top and turned into the bow. Oh my gosh, I am feeling so lucky right now because as you can see, I just made a really stupid, I don't know what, brain fart and just like plopped my brush there as I went to go plop my brush there instead. And luckily it is literally exactly on an intersection. You can see that pink mark right there. So that means it's going to be covered up by the part that goes around the bow. Whew, I'm feeling so lucky. So I currently have all of the hand sewing done on the skirt other than the hooks and eyes up at the waist. All of the other like facings, hems, etc., they're all completely done, except of course for our inset section. So right now I'm attempting to lay this flat on my table so that I can figure out the dimensions or the shape of where this inset goes, because basically it should go from just slightly shorter than this, which is basically where this back is, across to here, and then to meet up here with, of course, a little overlap on both sides, and then go up and be behind this section here. And it's just going to get hand sewn in that section. Honestly, I have so much of the striped fabric left, you can see it in the corner down there, that I think I'm literally just going to cut it out of the striped fabric, and then once I get the shape right, I will back it with cotton sateen just like the rest of the skirt. So yeah, I think that is the shape. I just have to figure out how to translate it onto the fabric. So to begin with, I've literally just cut a rectangular piece that goes up and has a 2-inch overlap with each of the sides. And then I kind of marked that 2 inches. I folded up a 2-inch hem because that's what I have everywhere else on this. And I marked the 2-inch edges and then just kind of laid it flat and set it in. So now let's go ahead and try this on to see if that is the right shape. Then I can cut away the excess that's still up here, because again, I did just cut it as a rectangle, and then put the sateen on the backing and stitch it all in place by hand. All of the hat ribbon is now painted, and I can go ahead, I've made this wide black part up here, so I can go ahead and run the rolled hem through that, and then I will be able to actually put together the hat ribbon. The rolled hem edge looks so freaking good. Look at that. One special thing that I did with this, I did not use normal serger thread, as you can see. So first off, the Baby Locks, they have the best rolled hem by far, in my opinion. So I did it on here as opposed to the machine that I normally have set up with black, which is the Brother. And because I didn't want to unthread this, and also because I wanted it shiny, I actually used embroidery threads in both the needle and the part that really gets rolled around. And then I used regular serger thread in the bottom, and that created this beautiful rolled hem that you see here. So now we can assemble the bow. Oh, and as you can see on screen here, the center part of the bow, like the knot, is diagonal. So instead of trying to figure out how to get this to be diagonal, I just cut a narrower piece like this and I painted diagonal stripes onto it. This one I actually made more of the stripes because I wasn't sure how many would be required to really go around in that knot. I want the finished part to look like this, but I did paint one extra purple stripe like you have on the actual hat. I did not go in and do the other repeat of the double white in here, but I think that only about this much is going to show, hopefully, anyway. So I just painted a little bit extra, but yeah, now we can go ahead and assemble the bow. I'm just going to press in the edges of this one. We've got the selvage edge over here and a serged edge over here. I'm just going to press them to the back so that it can hold everything in place. So this is all cut into basically two separate ribbon pieces here because obviously I painted all on the same side, and if I were to just fold back and forth, sometimes we'd be left with the back side. So yeah, we've got one little bundle here, which is the very front part of the bow, and then this bow is asymmetrical. It has only one other loop over here and has two loops over here. So over here we've basically folded that way, and then back under that way, or back over, I guess you could say, that way, and then that's all pinned in the middle there. So I'm going to stitch those in place where the overlap is, probably separately and then together, just so I don't kill the pins that are in there. And then we'll go ahead and I'll put the center section over that, and then this part is the part that goes around the crown. I took another look at like this picture here, and really I think it is only one like loop around the crown. It's not going twice around, and it's just folded in various ways because this ribbon is wider than the crown is tall. So right now everything is just pinned in place, and there's a lot of tacking spots that have to happen, but oh my gosh. So, okay, the bows were not like standing out on their own, which I kind of figured because the original bows also don't stand out on their own. I believe they are actually stuffed with either black tulle or black organza, possibly. I don't have black of either. What I do have is white, and I think that makes sense because honestly, they're white bows, so like, yeah. So I just literally took white organdy and kind of shoved it in there. I think I did too much. I think they're a little bit too poofy, too stand-up-ish, and also you can see some of it that wants to come up over the top, and I don't know yet how to prevent that, so that might be something that I have to look at. And then around the crown, you can see I've kind of folded the hat ribbon in various ways to kind of get this look right here. Mine is not identical, for one thing, because I think that the ribbon actually is flipped over or turned over once within the course of going around the hat, which I can't do because I didn't paint the back and I don't want to recut that area. So I've actually done like a double turn right in this section here, which is similar. I don't know that I love the shape. I feel like it's coming off as a weird shape, and maybe I just have to pull it out this way to like even it out a little bit, but it's all kind of tucked up in various places that all has to be tacked in place, and the bow is like really haphazard right now. The bow is also weighing the hat, and I'm not really sure how to prevent that. I need to try it on with the wig on and everything. The other thing that keeps happening, which is annoying me, and I don't think there's anything that I can do about it, unless maybe I can like cut out a piece of flat cardboard, I don't know. But this is meant to be a crushable hat, and because of that, despite the fact that I have steamed this top part flat over and over and over, it's going back into its like bulbous shape as opposed to the flat top shape. I have also, because the crown is now larger than my head, especially without a wig or hair or whatever on, I've actually just put some tulle, too much tulle I think, again, balled up in here, but that does help to keep it kind of sitting on the top of my head like they did then, as opposed to like falling over my head. So we are close. We have a lot of hand sewing to do on this. I am going to go try on that skirt like I told you I was going to do before I actually decided to finish hat stuff, or not finish, but you know, get close to finishing hat stuff instead. But we are definitely on the right track. Okay, I'm attempting to film this in the little sliver of mirror that I have here. You can see the inner part that is excess hanging down below, but that is otherwise the portion right there that is the horizontal stripes, and I think that that looks really right. So I can go ahead and kind of mark the portion that I actually need, plus the overlap, back that with the cotton sateen, and hand sew it in. And yeah, Dora was wanting to help out with all of that as well. Hey, Dora. Hi, Dora. The panel is now stitched into place. I stitched like the back side of it, so that's why you don't see any stitches really anywhere on this skirt. And now I just need to put the buttons on the back, the decorative buttons, and also the hooks and bars at the waist, and the skirt is complete. So it is now Sunday night. There are only 2 more days left before I head down to costume college, and I am meant to be wearing this at least on Thursday, if not possibly on Wednesday, because I actually just found out that the Academy Museum of Motion Pictures, which is in Los Angeles, currently has this costume on display. And I feel like it would be really cool, either possibly on Wednesday or on Thursday, maybe after the Queen Mary, to go over there and to visit that museum and see this costume up close, ideally by wearing this costume to go see it. I did call them and ask if it's okay to wear cosplay, and they said that it is. So possibly that will be coming soon. However, that will be coming in one more final reveal video of this costume, in which I also finish up all of the things that are still remaining to do. So I have mostly a lot of hand sewing to do on this cosplay. I have to tack all of the various places of this bow and like the bow part that wraps around the crown. All of that has to get tacked in place. So that's going to be just a lot of little kind of individual stitches there. I still don't have the buttons on most of the jacket, so I'm missing, let's see, 2 buttons here, I think 3 buttons here, and then the 2 buttons that are decorative that go in the back. Ideally, I would love to have the cuffs that go inside these sleeves. I feel like that is looking more and more unlikely as something that's going to happen for another reason, which I will also talk about in the next video. Mostly that I found out the trim that I thought was the trim of the collar and cuffs, not the trim of the collar and cuffs. It's not balls, it's like little diamonds. And I don't really have anything that is little diamonds. However, I will for sure be doing the dicky because this looks very silly. So that for sure will be coming next week. I'll be making the dicky, and that way at least like the exterior of this costume will look complete even if I don't quite have the cuffs in, which is, you know, slightly interior and really only shows like when she moves. And then on the skirt, as I just mentioned, I also have to do the buttons that go on the back. So there's 4 there, and then the hooks and bars for the closure. So I think that is everything left on this cosplay, but again, it's mostly, besides the dicky, it's mostly a lot of hand sewing. So I'll kind of walk you through in the next video all of that, plus of course how to make the dicky, and then show you the final look on the Queen Mary and maybe even at the Academy Museum. So anyway, that is going to be it for this video though. If you liked this video, please go ahead and click the thumbs up icon. And if you'd like to see more videos like this from me, please go ahead and click subscribe and the little bell icon to be notified every time I post a new video. I do post videos here on YouTube at least once a week, with sewing vlogs like this out on Tuesdays and sometimes additional costuming content out on Saturdays. But I post every day over on my Instagram, so please go follow me on Instagram. That's at Lady Rebecca Fashions. And if you'd like to help support all of the work that I do on this channel, I do have a link to my Patreon and my Ko-fi down in the description below, or you can send me a super thanks or join my YouTube channel memberships right here on YouTube below the video. I'd also like to give a special shout out to my Edwardian level patrons, Jean, Dan, and Kim. Thank you all so much for joining me today. I hope you all have a wonderful week, and I will see you very soon in my next video. Happy sewing!